Okay.
She's got a mic. She's mic'd up.
We're
I'm just
good.
gonna use it.
We're good. Okay.
Very good.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay, everyone, we're going to get started for our next talk. I'm going to introduce Cheryl Biswas, who's going to be speaking on what lurks in the shadows. Jeez.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. And it is really great to be here. So I am Cheryl Biswas, and my talk today is What Lurks in the Shadow, addressing the growing danger, the risk of shadow IT and shadow data. But first, it is 5 o'clock, so here's the deal. Every time you hear me say BYOD, I want you to take a sip, if you've brought something with you. Okay? All right, a little bit about me. I'm the Associate Security Officer with JIG Technologies in Toronto, Canada, and I'm also an analyst, researcher, and writer. I've always loved tech, and I think I discovered my inner hacker when I learned how to use computers and teach myself, and then I discovered InfoSec about a year ago, and I never want to leave. So the opinions in this piece and this piece are my own. There was a time when the security lords ruled, and mere mortals only had the devices they were granted and the access that they were given. Companies had standards. You remember those. If you wanted a better, faster printer, well, it had to be on the approved equipment list. If you wanted the latest and greatest version of Microsoft Word, too bad, not until the company was ready to roll that out. And if the company wasn't ready, well, you were out of luck. The decisions took time, and you didn't always get the answer that you wanted. It was easier then to regulate things because there were fewer things to regulate. Mobility wasn't an issue because it wasn't even a consideration. The available tech was enough to get the job done. But that's the problem, because tech is always evolving to do more, better, and faster. Well, how do you do more, better, and faster? Anybody? One word. Mobile. Because the internet had become this happen in place, and you could sign on any time to do anything. You could access all the data that you wanted when you wanted it, but only with the newest, fastest stuff. And was that on the approved standards list? No. Regulating tech was getting in the way of getting stuff done. And that's when security became an inconvenience. So what did people do to get what they wanted? BYOD. Everyone brings anything into work and they plug it in. Be afraid. Be very afraid. Because we can't see all the stuff all the time. So what do? Do you accept it? Regulate it? Do you ban it? Well, according to Pony Express, 74% of companies are adopting BYOD policies. They need visibility into all devices on or around their networks. Because the reality is that employees can and often will bypass your policy, sometimes by accident and sometimes on purpose. Which is bad because now there is the Internet of Things, yet even more stuff that plugs in. And who uses all the stuff? People. They are the unknown quantity, and they are the constant variable in a security equation we just cannot seem to solve. Which, for InfoSec anyway, is a very real fear of the unknown. What do they do with all those devices? And what do they do with all that stuff? With all the data? How do we control what we don't know? Welcome to the Mordor of security, where the eye of BYOD reigns supreme. Easy-to-use devices are everywhere. They're creating an unprecedented level of user entitlement, and a little knowledge has become a very dangerous thing as people continue to plug in and help themselves to data and to network access. So what happens when employees and users take it upon themselves to decide what devices they want to use and how they want to implement them? Shadow IT, shadow data. So here's the deal. As the Internet of Things proliferates and human nature takes its course, we cannot out-engineer human susceptibility and failings. So that device and the freedom to see it, to use it as the user sees fit, override anything that we've got in place. And then there are the tech-savvy staff who take it upon themselves to do their own IT, under their own autonomy, also known as the rogue IT department. Because, hey, who needs guidelines when you've got Google? And in the world of shadow IT, shadow data, rules are known but they're not observed. Risks are taken regardless of known consequences. And keep it secret definitely does not keep IT safe. We've got a problem, and it's more than just devices. In our corporate realm, we've got regular users and super users, for good reason. We need privileges in order to do certain things, and then we need privilege hierarchies to establish the right levels of access. But here's the problem. With great power comes great responsibility. And so, with those higher levels of privilege come higher levels of risk. The problem is that what we're seeing here is happening in organizations and companies. It's a less discriminating assignment of privilege. According to Erica Tchaikovsky, while 92% of organizations in the United States have some user monitoring in place, only 56% are handling privileged identity management. And almost a third of those companies don't have somebody actually analyzing or even auditing how and when employees or contractors are getting that privileged access onto systems, even doing it bi-weekly basis. I've got a question for you. How many of you do regular password updates? See, that's good. So we've got about 58% of organizations doing them. Now, what percentage of IT decision makers do you think share their credentials with other employees? Shout out a number. How much? Yeah, actually, that's very good. Yeah. Well, they're rounding it at about 60%, but I think that's lowballing it. Yes. And from 200 of those decision makers, they found that 52% of US-based IT employees, that's just in the US, share their credentials with contractors. I think we know all about this one. IT departments often give non-technical execs broad privileges because it's easier to give more freedom than it is to get yelled at. But now this approach is extending down into the ranks of ordinary employees. So we have all these devices and a pervasive BYOD culture demanding access to the networks and to the data. All that lovely big data. Oh, the pressure, right? So we comply. And we keep opening doors that we should just keep closed. And as the culture grows, so does this sense of entitlement. And it spreads like a shadow across organizations. For businesses, it's a cost-saving measure and a convenience, but businesses, they really need to heed this warning. When you agree to BYOD policies, you put employees within the security chain. Privilege loses its meaning when that account status is being freely handed out. Yes, we've got cutbacks and reductions, and that means fewer guardians at the gate for IT. but we're under constant pressure to keep things running and to meet deadlines. So we resort to the path of least resistance, and we look to simplify the process. Yeah, sure, why not enable users to solve problems for themselves and elevate their status? Or why not let marketing have access to all the data? Because they're just running reports, right? Or sure, we'll just let people update the social media accounts. Because really, what can go wrong? Well, is there a problem? We know there is. Because all a hacker needs is that one key word to get in. And once in, they can find their way through the labyrinth of security as easy as a rat through a series of tunnels. Everybody remember when Cyber Caliphate hacked the US military accounts this past winter, right? The social media ones? Same deal. Those accounts with elevated privilege are prized by hackers. According to Verizon's 2015 data breach report, these passwords are worth their weight in gold because they've got root, admin, and read-write access for critical infrastructure and data and other applications. Well, we know what happens when security patches aren't updated and how easily it is for hackers to exploit those flaws. We've just been through a rash of 0 days. Thank you, hacking team. Let's see, there was Adobe Flash. There was Internet Explorer. There's always WordPress. And then this past fall, who can forget Shell Shock and Bash, which we are still seeing today. It's one thing to try and keep all of our corporate devices patched, but try enforcing that with individuals. So, what happens when individuals operate as individuals and they make independent decisions about data storage and transmission? This is why we can't have nice things. I found this great graph by Alien Vault. So it's the threat matrix, and it shows a variety of risks that we're familiar with. We've got disgruntled employees, user errors, we've got espionage, but by far the biggest circle on there is shadow IT. And it's about intent, frustrated users jumping the barriers that we've put in place for their own security, and then risking everyone's security. Internal employees and contractors, well, they're setting up wireless LAN access points for themselves. We've got people using personal tech for business functions with no formal BYOD policies in place to govern them. And then we've got people sending sensitive, confidential information across unsecured channels like Skype without any regard for compliance or regulation. And we're talking HIPAA data here. So what do you do when your greatest security risk comes from within? Welcome to Gen Mobile. According to Aruba Networks, this is the mobile workforce we now have, and they're part of the enterprise realm. They are flexible, transparent, and a collaborative presence within our workforce. And for the security of company data and IT systems, there may be cause for concern. I wonder why. Now I have a question for you. What percentage of workers do you think take it upon themselves to do their own IT, self-service IT? Anybody? Okay, yeah, it's very close to 80%. It's 77% according to Aruba. I say, hello, Shadow. And businesses just aren't ready. They didn't see this coming, so they didn't put provisions in place. Stats show that over 37% of them don't have a mobile security policy in place. And as for enforcing things like password protection on mobile corporate devices, 1 in 5 users do not do that. We're battling a culture of indifference. We've got people sidestepping company policy in favor of expediency, which happens everywhere, every day, because it's easier just to download the software than it is to go through corporate policy. Again, in that recent study by Ariba Networks, 11,500 workers were surveyed, and across 23 countries. Hands up if some of these things are problems you're dealing with on a daily basis. Sharing is the norm of devices, data, and passwords. That indifference towards security is somebody else's problem. Yeah. Or self-empowerment. Yeah. And thank you. They caution. Businesses are ill-prepared for the high-risk, high-growth mindset of Gen Mobile workforce. Now, I'm going to show you a little demo I did. Has everybody here heard of Shodan? If not, it's very cool. So this site lets you see all the internet connections in real time. And you can do a variety of searches. You can go by device, by country, by company, by password. And what happens if we enter default? Well, let's just say there are a whole lot of devices out there with default still. This is very current, still as that password. So what happens if I modified the search a little, which I did, and I looked specifically within the highest ranking country, and I found the highest ranking city, which was Brooklyn. And then I zoomed in on Brooklyn, and you can see that's a street, and there's an actual building there, and I can see a whole lot more than makes me feel comfortable. That stuff I shouldn't be seeing. That stuff nobody should be seeing, right? It really is that bad. So how do we regulate a society that's essentially device-driven? Because it isn't just the servers and the desktops at the office. Everywhere we go and anything we touch, we're connected. We're talking Fitbits, Apple Watches, smartphones, flash drives. The ability to portably plug in and then help ourselves is one we don't fully understand, and we've lost any control over it that we even had. Current rules can't apply when the game itself has changed. And clearly, what was working is no longer working. Just say no? Yeah, if only it were that easy. So maybe it's a matter of regaining control. Could we get corporations to adopt and enforce the rules of least privilege? Well, the original concept came about 40 years ago. And you could reference that paper back to Sans, but I think we've moved past that point. The reality is that this is a hard concept to sell. And that's before we've even let the genie out of the bottle. So are you guys going to be the ones to claw back the access and restrict all those devices? Training and awareness are a given. And if we do them regularly and not reactively, it'll pay off. Because knowledge is power. And it can help us create the culture that we need to forge security out of insecurity. And then there's inventory and monitoring, and these are musts. In fact, current and complete inventories are essential to your first line of defense, according to Sans. And what about high-value assets that need to be secured the most? But this is about what we're not capturing. If we're really going to catch stuff in time, what we need is to be tracking all the people and all their devices all the time. We could keep asking nicely, but when that doesn't work, we need to get our heads in the cloud. How many of you are having issues with cloud-based free-for-all at your workplace? Yeah. So cloud apps are just information pipelines for users, and they're data storage dumps for corporations. What we need is to be able to understand what user trends are, how those applications are working, and what's getting duplicated. And the good news is, there's stuff out there now that could help us do this. This is Netscope, which came about late 2013. So if you want to know who's been sending what up into the cloud, Netscope claims that it can help you do that. It acts as a cloud application analytics and security. And it's designed to help CIOs tackle the accelerating shadow IT conundrum. And if it has become an all-access pass taps where you are, well, Skyfence claims it can help you rein that in. It's designed to help you enforce data leakage policy, and it uses all the right buzzwords. Visibility, compliance, shadow, and it is all about taking back control. But then there's this. Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. Now this may sound radical, but what if we found a way to work with the people who keep jumping and bypassing the rules?
Hello folks, I'm Geek here. Unfortunately, no one was watching the camera at this time, and it looks like the Evan Media froze up again, so we don't have audio or the speaker moving for the rest of this video. Sorry for the inconvenience.